The Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 3 DraftKings picks and preview. Go check out the DraftKings cheat sheet up on DKPlaybook.com. Probably sometime Thursday afternoon. When it's up, you'll find it in the description of this video and podcast. And boom, you can be on your way. That gets updated again on Sunday morning. And remember, main slate only. No Sunday night, no Monday night, no Thursday night. Just the DraftKings Millionaire Maker slate. If we're going to put it down to that. Give the episode a like, and in the comment section, leave your DraftKings handle and tell me your single favorite running back value of the week, and boom, you're in a draw for 20 DK dollars. I want to get right into this because it's going to be the most hot fire show of the season. We may have to run it back again if it's too hot fire. We have to throw some cold water on some of these takes. But you people asked for it. We made it happen. First up, host of the TakeCast podcast, which you should go subscribe to, review, do all that fun stuff. Got a byline on ESPN this week. I think he writes for every single publication there is. It is Davis MAttek. What's going on, brother?
Not a whole lot. Excited to be back. You replaced me with Drew and Leone for 2 weeks, which is like, I mean, I guess that's fine if you want to be bored to death.
Well, I mean, that was the whole thing. That's why we had to get you back on. People were like, this Drew and this Mike guy, they give out good information, but good God, someone make a joke. And I was like, all right.
It's like listen to Drew talk for an hour and a half, and you just want to drink some chamomile tea and go right to sleep.
Who is the podcast sponsored by again there, Davis?
My podcast is currently sponsored by Daily Roto or dailyrodeo.com if you are so inclined.
So it's nice that you're out here promoting everyone. And if people do want to go to Daily Roto, I got a promo code for you, the PME. Get yourself 10% off. Now, to join us on this show, the third member of the team, he has recently retired from the DFS industry to become a lumberjack from arborpro.com. It's the Siege.
Oh, what's going on? What's going on, Pat?
Are you over all the arborist jokes yet?
Honestly, we enjoy all free media, so feel free to keep them going.
All right, here we go. All right, let's dive right into this. Main slate running backs. When we go to the very top, you're going to see Kamara, you're going to see Gurley. I'm not too concerned about that. What I want to talk about is Corey Clement, because there's such little running back value on the board this week as we saw the first 2 weeks. And with Ajayi potentially being out, probably no Darren Sproles. They've promoted Davis from the practice squad. We're going to see some Wendell Smallwood. Siege, is Clement good chalk or bad chalk this week? Because we've seen how the Eagles use running backs, and it doesn't matter who it is. It's probably going to be a three-way split at some point.
I'm only worried because Darren Sproles got upgraded to day-to-day today. That's my only concern. It's like, if this turns into another 3 or 4 man committee, I really don't have a lot of interest. So I think it's really going to kind of pin on, like, what are the practice reports on Adams, and what's the status on Sproles? Kind of too early to tell, to be honest, because it could go from being like the best chalk on the board versus a really bad Colts team to like really bad chalk if it's going to be a 4-man platoon. All
right, well, let's say Ajayi and Sproles are both out, Davis. Is Clement just where you plug your lineup in first, then work your way around it?
Yeah, he's probably a lock button for 4,300 because even if he splits time with Smallwood and Josh Adams, you'd probably assume anywhere between 5 to 10 rushing attempts and like, I would guess like 5 targets-ish. I don't know. I don't think they would use Adams or Smallwood as goal line rushers either. And I think through 2 games, we saw that they're more comfortable rushing towards the goal line. There is like some non-zero probability that Carson Wentz being back does change the way they rotate their running backs, just because they have some Nick Foles stuff. They have some Carson Wentz stuff. But this Indy defense is really bad. This should be a higher paced game. I think Clement is probably just like, even if he is bad chalk, he's still a lock button sort of play for 4,300 if both of those guys miss.
All right, so Siege, if I'm playing 20 lineups this week, how many should feature Clement? Should it be 50%, 75%, 100%? Probably not 0%.
I mean, it really depends on it. Like, assuming Ajayi and Sproles are out, I'm probably just going to try to guess where the field is and match it. I don't really want to take a huge stand one way or another. But I want to ask about Aaron Jones. Like, same price point, kind of a similar matchup. Jamal Williams has really done nothing to go win that job. Like, couldn't we just pivot there in tournaments?
Yeah, I just don't see where the volume would come from Aaron Jones. Like, I think that a lot of this has to do is Williams has looked really poor, but they've also played the Bears and Vikings the first 2 weeks, so they're not the most optimal matchups. And everything the point that people keep going back to is Jamal Williams, good pass blocker, Aaron Jones, at least from the last time we saw him, bad pass blocker. And it's not like Aaron Rodgers can't line up under center. He's taking everything at a shotgun. So I would find it hard to believe they would put someone in who could potentially open up more lanes for people to come and just destroy Aaron Rodgers. You just put the guy back there. I just don't think that any Green Bay running back with 3 of them now there has much value. Davis?
I mean, the fact is that Jamal Williams is like, yeah, even if you think he is the pass blocker, like Montgomery's already been playing like 35% of the snaps. So the only way Aaron Jones has any path to value is if Jamal Williams plays 0% of the snaps. And I don't like, because Montgomery's really already the third down back. They have the Ty Montgomery packages. They have the Ty Montgomery plays, and he's like way better out of the shotgun than Williams is. And they, like you said, Pat, they're really not trying to get Rodgers blown up right now. A lot of quick throws, a lot of guys in the slot. So yeah, not really putting Aaron Jones in my player pool this week.
Well, I mean, Siege, what do you think about Jones? Are you going to end up going to him as the pivot? Because like Eckler's right there too. I think I would prefer Eckler if there's going to be a pivot.
I think you guys are projecting Clement for a few more touches than I am, because I was thinking like Aaron Jones would be in the 10 to 12 range and Clement would be like in the 12 to 14 range. But it sounds like you guys have a bigger gap than that.
Well, I mean, I don't even know if it's going to be a bigger gap, because if you're going to like put in downside to all this, there could just be no matter how many running backs are active for the Eagles, if there ends up being 3, then it could just be a 40-40-20 split like we've seen the Eagles do in the past. You're hoping that Clement gets up to 50% as sort of a floor, and maybe he can work his way up and end up with more volume than Jones. I just don't see a path to Jones ending up with over 50% of the snap share and all the goal line work, because the Packers don't really run the ball all that often from around the goal line. I think that would be the differentiator, that Clement would be the one handling all the goal line work in a primo matchup. That would separate them apart for me, at least.
I just remember last year, like when Jamal Williams was healthy, like it was the Aaron Jones show towards the end of last year. It's like, has a lot changed in the offseason? Like, is getting suspended for 2 games really going to change that? I'm not quite sure. I don't know.
Aaron Jones was playing in the fourth quarter, the 4th preseason game on special teams for the Packers. Like, I don't, regardless of how you feel about him as a rusher, I don't think you can just be like, all right, this dude's coming in, he's the star running back, they're smashing it, they're 10, 12 touches a game. It doesn't seem likely.
So, okay, if we throw out Aaron Jones, is there anyone else down in that, like, are you guys Philip Lindsay believers?
I mean, like, I'm a Philip Lindsay believer, but this is both a bad matchup and a spot where his ownership is going to be higher than any sort of reasonable projection for him. They're still playing Devontae Booker. Royce Freeman is being used at the goal line. So the only way Lindsay can, like, I don't ever really think there's that much value in having like a bad core of cheap running backs. Like the place you want to differentiate is cheap wide receivers, because every week the good running back plays are just so clear. It doesn't like people who like would fade James Conner. It's just like there's no point in creating intentionally bad and non-optimal rosters.
So I mean, go ahead, Siege.
I know salary is a little tight this week, but like instead of Corey Clement at 4,300, like didn't we just bury the lead and we should just be starting Matt Breida at 5,400 against the Chiefs? Like good in the pass game, leading the NFL in rushing yards somehow through 2 weeks. Like shouldn't we just go there against an awful Chiefs defense?
I mean, I'm like the biggest Breida guy there is, but I don't see how he gets in my player pool this week either.
Yeah, I wasn't super strong on Breida here. Like he's still directly splitting with Alfred Morris, and I'm not convinced.
That's just not going to last, though.
Like, if that's not going to last, how do we know that's not going to last? And we think that Aaron Jones comes back and gets 12 touches.
I mean, maybe I'm being optimistic on Aaron Jones. Like I could concede that. Like I'm just an Aaron Jones guy. I was just asking, like, should we just? Because the difference in ownership there would be like.
Well, I'm a Matt Breida guy too, and he's like a clear start in your season-long league. But they're using Kyle Juszczyk on third downs. You know, Juszczyk and Breida had the same amount of targets last week. Morris is getting the goal line carries. So, like by definition, in a daily fantasy format where he's like that you're getting no discount for him. Like he's priced honestly higher than his workload suggests he should be. And they're like big dogs. So I guess maybe he gets more playing time because they're big road dogs. But you're saying like Juszczyk is no longer playing on third downs, which is not what happened last week. Like Juszczyk is playing like a straight up running back for them.
Well, I just think if you're gonna get somewhere between 15 to 18 touches against the Chiefs, like you got to at least make the player pool.
Yeah,
they're that bad.
I mean, he's not even gotten close to 15 yet.
He got 14 touches last week.
When like these very short targets, like I mean, I'm a Breida guy, so you're making me argue against someone I like, but like, how would you play Breida instead of just like playing like 80% Gio Bernard? Like that just doesn't make sense.
That was the whole thing. Like Gio Bernard, if you just go up in the pricing a little bit, yeah, pricing's tight, but Gio's far more of a lock for those touches, especially in the passing game as well. But like, why is Matt Breida a substantially better play than Kenyon Drake, who's right next to him?
Kenyon Drake.
Kenyon Drake's been good through two games.
Frank Gore won't die.
Well, neither will Alfred Morris.
I just don't believe Alfred Morris is like really going to keep getting that amount of work. It's just common sense at some point. I get it early in the season, you try to work guys in this shape, but like common sense at some point is like, let's put the guy that's good on the field. He's leading the NFL in rushing, for goodness sake. We can't get him more than 14 touches against the Chiefs.
I mean, he had a 66-yard touchdown run. No one else has had a long touchdown run yet. Like
those count though.
I'm not saying it doesn't count, but it's just like it just feels like Breida is in a timeshare on the road. It's like a giant dog, and Jimmy G has looked like honestly pretty bad. The San Francisco 49ers offense looks like honestly like a legit like target share nightmare.
Well, even if you take it away the 66-yard run, he still averaged 7 yards a carry. Like he should get more work.
I don't think anyone's denying that he should get more work. It's just I don't think that he's going to continue to get like a huge jump up in work. And Davis, you pointed this out. I saw this on Twitter right before we came on. The amount of running backs who aren't getting.
This is actually I ran this thing you're about to say. I ran the filter wrong, and it's not accurate.
How dare you?
PFR sometimes screws me with the way the filters come out.
So, I mean, what was the point you were trying to make? The number of running backs that don't see 20 carries
running
anymore?
Backs. This is true that teams are placing less emphasis on running the ball with their running backs, and the good running backs are getting more targets and less carries. That is a true statement, but the actual thing I tweeted is not accurate.
So, Siege, how many running backs this week do you think end up with over 20 touches? Like, if we go to the top and we think about it, you guys can both chime in on this, say yes or no. Alvin Kamara over 20 touches, Siege.
Yes.
Davis.
Say that again?
Kamara over 20.
No, I'd take the under. They don't want him to get that many. They want Kamara to get like 18.
All right, so I'm going to take the over.
You think he's going to get 18 touches? He could get 18 catches in this game.
I
guess
I'm with Siege on this one.
It's possible. I mean, I have Kamara in my cash lineup right now, but certainly I'm not gonna like they're using Gillislee, they're using Jonathan Williams. I would say in between 18 and 22 is probably the median for him.
All right, so Todd Gurley over 20 touches. And does the cramping injury from last week concern you at all, or is that just, hey, we're up by 40, let's take Todd Gurley out of the game?
Yeah, I would say Gurley. I think every week you'll project Gurley for more touches than you will Kamara.
Siege?
Yeah, I totally agree there. I think he's over 20 for sure.
So McCaffrey, yes or no? Because I think that depends on catches, but he's going to get them.
So McCaffrey was like a lock play last week that somehow didn't end up in my lineup. And this week you have to decide between McCaffrey and Barkley in terms of your pass catching running back. And it kind of comes down to how you diagnose these two matchups.
Siege?
This sounds like Davis is fading Alvin Kamara.
Right now Kamara is in my lineup, but I do not think he is like a stone 100% locked sometimes, like the way that other people do. Because I think a viable lineup construction on DraftKings is Barkley, McCaffrey, Bernard, and then you have you can get one 7K receiver, whereas in the other lineup constructions you can't get with the Kamara you can't get a 7K receiver.
Well, Alvin Kamara is going to be like a stud number one wide receiver with the number of targets he's going to get this week. So I'm normally the guy that likes to fade the chalk. There is no way I'm fading Alvin Kamara this week.
But okay, let me ask you both this. How much derivative value can you mine from just taking Chris Thompson and not taking Kamara?
Christian McCaffrey had 14 catches last week. Like, if Alvin Kamara puts up like 10 to 12, good luck fading him.
Yeah, but if all these running backs are putting up this, like, what was it, 4 running backs last week had over 10 catches? Like, if this is going to be a thing that continues, like Thompson's in that mix, McCaffrey's in that mix, Barkley's in that mix, we could potentially see other guys get thrust, like Gio could be in that mix this week too.
Chris Thompson is a more expensive version of Matt Breida. Like, why would you just save for Matt Breida? It's literally the same amount of work.
Well, that's
not true.
That's an egregious take.
It is. What do you mean it's not true?
Chris Thompson is the best player on his team and the number one target. That is not true for Matt Breida.
He's had 11 and 17 touches. Like, that's basically what Matt Breida's got through 2 weeks. It's the same amount of work.
But Thompson's touches are always going to be more valuable than Breida's. He's not ever going to be used in between the tackles, and he's much more likely to get a target.
Okay, but like, you're still paying an extra 15, 20% for that. Like, that's not. And by the way, Matt Breida's got the way better matchup. With all due respect to Green Bay's terrible defense, like, the Chiefs' defense might be the worst defense we've seen outside of the Buffalo Bills in a long time.
I mean, the Steelers' defense might be worse than the Chiefs' defense.
Oh, stop it!
The Steelers' defense is not good.
The Chargers had another 21 points on the board if their wide receivers could catch wide open balls.
Sure. I'm not saying the Chiefs' defense is good, but we just watched this. The Steelers the past 2 weeks have been absolutely abysmal on the defensive side of the ball.
Patrick Mahomes is just that good.
Was he going to throw eight touchdowns this week?
I mean, I think he'll finally get that rushing touchdown we've all been waiting for.
Okay, well, how about this? Because everyone, when we talk about, like, we'll get to stacks at the very end of this, so hit the description if you're really concerned about stacking and which games you should target. But everyone's going to be targeting this Chiefs offense. People are going to bring it back with 49ers players. Davis, does Kareem Hunt go under-owned this week?
Yeah, Kareem Hunt is like, he's like the obvious, if you just know anything about like math, you would just say, like, obviously Mahomes has some horrible stinking games coming up, like, and it won't even necessarily be predicated on matchup. It will just happen because that's the way that things work in the world. They come back to a normal level. And so I'm not going to say it's against the 49ers that he has 220 passing yards, 3 interceptions, and 1 touchdown, but certainly he will have that stat line against a team at some point this year. And Kareem Hunt for 6,000, like he's $600 more than Breida. You should be playing, like, if you're a contrarian by nature, you should be smashing in Kareem Hunt as a 6-point home favorite, not Breida as a 6-point road dog.
What do you?
I got lineups with both. I actually have a post-it note right above here that says play 30% Kareem Hunt at minimum. So I'm on board with you.
So the other guys, okay, you talked about cash builds. We're mainly talking about tournaments here and talking about trying to win the Millionaire Maker. Could you potentially, in this situation, fade some of the top-end running backs, take the discount prices on guys like Gio Bernard and Tevin Coleman, who project to see one of the highest workloads of the week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with the mid-range running back construction, like Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard is being used as a receiver. He's getting more way more touches than Tariq Cohen. And this is a guy who's going to be 3% owned against a team that did not get the ball across the 50-yard line until the fourth quarter last week. Like insane positive game script for Jordan Howard.
Well, my problem with Jordan Howard here, and maybe I'm just a Jordan Howard hater in this situation. However, I'd rather pay up the $900 and take an equally low-owned Melvin Gordon.
If you think Melvin Gordon's going to be low-owned, I think you have.
How is he going to be? How is he going to be highly owned in this spot?
Because everyone's going to look at those catches and go, "Oh, look, he's been catching the ball more this year, and he's got 30 points in each of the 2 games, Pat, which means he's always going to score 30 points moving forward." I think people are definitely going to play Melvin Gordon for the pass catcher. Like in tournaments. I don't think you're going to get like a sub 10% guy there.
Now, see, I think the whole thing is because of the tight pricing this week that people will want to pay up for one of Kamara, one of Todd Gurley, or one of Christian McCaffrey, or potentially even Barkley, because so many people watch that Sunday night game, and that just influences decisions. They'll see that Melvin Gordon is playing the Rams, and if you pay up for one of those running backs, you can't afford Melvin Gordon. You'd have to start with Melvin Gordon if you're going to have him.
I'm not so sure that Saquon's going to draw the ownership I think you guys think he will.
No, he definitely will, because he pops in projections too, because these sites are giving him like a pretty gigantic target share, and a lot of lineups that you play against in these large field tournaments are generated by projections and an optimizer, not by hand.
I will gladly. I gladly hope that those projection models do not change. I will gladly be fading Saquon this week.
All right, so what about the other two at the top? Did any of them make any logical plays here, being Ezekiel Elliott, David Johnson? I mean, you probably don't want to play Dalvin Cook either way because he's dealing with a hamstring problem. We don't know how long he's going to be in the game for. But in terms of Elliott or David Johnson, Siege, do you have any interest in those two?
The Dallas-Seattle game is one that I think I want to go back and watch more of those games, because either this is a really good Dallas bounce back spot or this is a really good Seattle bounce back spot. One of these teams I think is going to bounce back in a strong way in this spot. I just don't know which one it's going to be.
Davis?
They're both really bad teams. Dallas is a really bad team who played a worse Giants team. The Seahawks, they have probably the worst offensive coordinator in football. Their offensive, they have a horrible offensive line. They don't have any running backs who can add value. They're using 34-year-old Brandon Marshall in the Doug Baldwin role. It's all bad. It's bad up and down in Seattle.
I just hate when you start overreacting on teams that haven't played a home game yet. They have yet to play a home game.
The Seahawks were my sixth worst team project. I thought they were going to be bad before the year. So if you think a team's going to be bad and then they play bad and they play bad exactly how you think they were going to play, what do you do with that?
I mean, I thought they might be a bottom 3 team in football, in the preseason. I know we had a good conversation about that. My issue is just that, when you see the worst of the teams, I'm not sure they're as bad as they've looked so far. And Dallas is a really bad team too. I could see Russell Wilson having the 400-yard game and everyone saying, "See, Seattle's fine, guys. They're fine." And then
it's unlikely that they get that much, because these are two teams that play down in pace too. By design.
I just think Seattle's going to have to change this up. They've tried this methodical game now 2 weeks in a row and really
what evidence is there that Carroll or Schottenheimer has any interest in doing that? Because Schottenheimer finishes 28th in offensive yards per play every year. The only year Seattle has ever been good, above league average, was the year that Marshawn couldn't be tackled and they were doing the read option with Russell Wilson, and they've completely removed that from the playbook.
Right, but we've seen this before. We've seen games we expected to be low scoring. I remember Houston-Seattle last year in Seattle, and that game just turned into a shootout out of nowhere. And if we're talking about winning the Million Maker, right, we're looking for the random out of nowhere spot that can just shoot out. And having Russell Wilson on one side and that Seattle defense on the other, if there are plays run, points will get put on the board.
Well, the highest scoring expected games in week 1 and week 2 won the Million Maker both weeks.
Well,
but that's a small sample size alert.
Even pertaining, a longer sample we've seen with this Cowboys team now is that because of this pace of play that they run, which is the slowest in all of football, there hasn't been more than 40 points scored in any Cowboys game their past 8 games.
They are killers of fun and fantasy points. I'm a Cowboys fan, and I'll just say they by design, they want to play the most miserable to watch football you can imagine. And the defense is actually decent now, which is not something that was true when they've done this strategy in the past. So it's even more suffocating now.
I think that there's a little more upside here than you guys are giving it credit for.
I can see the path to what you're talking about, Siege. I just don't think it's super likely in the spot. Maybe you're right.
Oh, no. I'm not saying it's super likely. I'm just saying, if you're looking for something completely off the board, I like to target teams in week 3 that haven't played a home game yet, because everyone is seeing them on the road twice, and they're like, oh, this team is X. And it's well, they haven't played a home game yet. Let's calm down a little bit.
So you really like the Chiefs then?
I love the Chiefs, but that's not really anything contrarian at this point. I've been overweight on them 2 weeks, and this will definitely be the third.
We'll talk about that when stacks come around. David Johnson, zero interest. Just wait and see until he turns it around, I guess.
Well, you could buy the coach speak that they're going to use him in the slot this week, but that would be the only reason there would be to play him. And I'm the biggest DJ guy in the world, but it's just the team right now, the only way he has path to fantasy relevance is if they bench Bradford for Rosen. It's really the only thing they can do.
Is he even above 1 fantasy point this season? I think he's under 1 fantasy point. Last I looked.
Bradford?
Yeah.
I mean, he's horrible.
I like last I looked, he was at like 0.2 fantasy points. Oh, he got above it. Good job, Bradford. You did it.
What a hero.
Yeah, he's so bad. This total is 2 points lower than Jets Browns. I think that explains everything you need to know about playing guys in this game this week.
All right, so any final thoughts on running back, Davis? Because I'm really kind of digging, I know we've talked about a lot of guys, but I'm really kind of into Melvin Gordon, Tevin Coleman, Gio Bernard, and I guess Clement from down low. And if people are going to use Breida, I would just pivot onto Kenyon Drake in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Kamara, McCaffrey, or Barkley Gio core with like sprinkles of Tevin and Howard is how I'm planning on attacking the position this week, and also Kareem Hunt, like way under-owned.
Siege?
I'm going to have definitely a lot of Kareem Hunt, but I'm going to be I thought Breida was chalk, so I clearly will be pounding the Matt Breida train this week. It's an offense that loves to get lots of yards. Kansas City loves to give up lots of yards. Red zone efficiency definitely is a question mark with this team, but honestly, if he catches like 5 balls for 50 and rushes for 60 more, I'll be just fine. So I definitely, at 5-4, Breida's too cheap.
As it pertains to ownership, tune into Friday's show. Myself and Jeff Ulrich will go over the fansharesports.com tagging after we get all the injury reports and everything like that. And we'll have a better sense of who's going to be higher owned, who's going to be lower owned. And I'll put that into cheat sheet form up on dkplaybook.com for Saturday that you can go check out. And remember, live Sunday morning, 10 a.m., DraftKings YouTube channel, me, the Costengarian, giving you bad advice. You want to tune into that. Have some laughs, though. Let's switch to wide receivers. And if we're going to pay up, because it sounds like that's what we're doing at running backs, Davis, where are we paying down to at receiver?
I mean, the top guy is Tyler Boyd. That would be the stone chalk in terms of the cheap wide receivers. I can't actually speak to the quality of the matchup, I suppose. Like I don't have an in-depth scouting report on the slot cornerback for the Carolina Panthers, but Boyd's had massive like snap share, massive target share for 2 weeks in a row. And he's like, he would be what you would call like in baseball, like a post-hype sleeper. Like this guy was like an amazing prospect at Pitt and was really came in right away as like a full-time starter and played behind LaFell last year. But I mean, he's better than John Ross. He's 3,700. He has, let's see here. He's got 9 targets and 5 targets in back-to-back weeks. Probably expect Cincinnati to be trailing in this game. So just probably chalk him in for like 6 targets as like a floor. Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm big on Boyd this week.
Siege, is it ever a good idea to really eat the chalk at cheap receiver, or is that a very clear place to pivot?
I think that what Davis says about Tyler Boyd makes a lot of sense. But I just think there are other options down here that, now granted, I don't think their target share is quite locked in as Tyler Boyd is. Like he clearly was Andy Dalton's favorite short target. But Calvin Ridley looked really good last week. Played a lot more snaps with the Devonta Freeman injury. And again, a game against the Saints, points are probably going to get scored there. So I could see Atlanta playing a lot more 3 wide sets than normal. So I think that 3,700, he could be a really good pivot, like right there.
Well, what happens with the Jacksonville wide receivers? Because Moncrief is $3,800, but he hurt his knee at the end of that Patriots game. There hasn't been an update that I've seen as of yet, as we record this on Wednesday morning. So again, the injury show, super helpful when it comes to this stuff. But let's say he's playing Siege. Would you play Dante Moncrief?
I know Blake Bortles just made the New England Patriots look like a minor league team, but it's still Blake Bortles. There's still a lot of guys there. I'm going to take a pass.
Siege? Or Davis, sorry?
Yeah, no, this is like a 4-month-old take by me, but both Keelan Cole and Dede Westbrook are like top 30 fantasy wide receivers and will continue to be so for the rest of the year. The Jaguars coaching staff, they definitely learned from their mistakes last season. They stayed aggressive in that Patriots game. Like Blake Bortles was taking deep shots, like legit deep shots, up 11 points in the fourth quarter with 3 minutes left against the Patriots. Keelan Cole is a stud. Dede Westbrook is a stud. They're using both of these guys in their optimal role. They're using Keelan Cole as like a kind of not that he is Odell Beckham, but they're using a smaller guy on the outsides and using him in the right route combinations. And then they're using Westbrook in the slot and putting him in space. Westbrook is like, just the targets he's getting are so easy. So he's just gonna continue to convert those. I don't know if either one of them are like great plays this week at home to Tennessee. And it's actually frustrating. A line hasn't come out on this yet because because I already used the Vikings in my survivor pool. So I like need to see the Jaguars line because I think I'm gonna take them this week.
Well, I guess the main difference between Cole and Westbrook is that they're more expensive than Boyd. Moncrief is right in that territory.
Moncrief is just like such dust. I don't have any interest in him.
He looked good last week. That touchdown catch was pretty impressive.
He's like he's a guy who burned me once, burned me twice, burned me 7 times. Shame on me. Like I've been loosey with the football with Dante Moncrief both in seasonal and in DFS.
Well, okay, what about if we're talking about attacking that San Francisco KC game, everyone kind of used Dante Pettis last week. He had the 35-yard catch to open the game, and that was basically it. Is he someone to go back to in this spot? Like Mike Williams is down here too. A lot of people are predicting the under of 48 in that Rams-Chargers game. I think that's a game that just absolutely shoots out. So getting pieces of those two games, especially the cheaper pieces, could be the way to do this.
Shame on me for playing 49ers receivers last week. Like that, how many times do I have to learn that like it's a Jimmy G, like it's a Patriots disciple. They're gonna spread the ball around everywhere, and no one's got this massive ceiling. Like I think I'm done with 49ers receivers until Goodwin's back. Like they're just gonna spread it around to like 9 different guys, and no one's gonna have any upside.
Davis, would you go to attacking any one of those two games in terms of the cheap options?
I think you just need to make a declaration on who you think is talented for the 49ers and just play those guys and accept that some weeks it's just not going to be their week. And for me, it's Kittle and Goodwin, and I will fade Garcon every week. I will fade Trent Taylor every week. I will fade Kendrick Bourne and Ricky James, and I will just play Goodwin, Kittle, and CJ's boy Breida. Because like Siege put me in a corner where it made me sound like I was anti-Breida when that's like my guy. But
if he's your guy, how could you not play him against the Kansas City Chiefs defense?
Because it's a bad, like 5,400 for him this week with all the running backs out there. It's just a bad price.
I think it's a phenomenal price. Just like, all right, we're done with running backs, but I can't believe that.
In terms of like value wide receivers, though, one that no one wants to hear is Kelvin Benjamin at 3,700 against Minnesota.
Don't even bring it up. Don't even bring it up.
He will have 0 fantasy points in the first half, but in the second half, when the Vikings defense, when they're up 30 points and they have the backups in there, Josh Allen has a couple things going for him. One is that he's top 5 in the NFL in both aggressive throws and intended average depth of target on said throws. And Benjamin probably gets like 9 targets in the second half against, Vikings punt gunners who are playing cornerbacks.
I like that you threw in the word intended for Josh Allen, because I think we can throw that in for Trubisky too. That just, they have a lot of intentions when they throw the ball. The ball just doesn't happen to go to those places.
I'm not particularly down on Trubisky. I think Matt Nagy is like, he knows exactly what he has in Trubisky, and they're going to win a lot of football games playing within Trubisky's limitations this year.
Well, he needs to stop short arming the ball when he's trying to make down the field throws.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah.
So Siege, from down here as well, like if there's a chance Larry Fitzgerald doesn't go, like would Christian Kirk be a punt play?
Not really, but I got a bunch of disgusting punt names if you would like to hear some.
The only other one I wanted to bring up before you can rattle those off was Jamison Crowder. Everyone's just off of him because him and Alex Smith don't mesh at all, although on paper they really should. That if you don't play Chris Thompson, you might kind of hope that they funnel all those short targets to Jamison Crowder. He's under 4K, and no one's going to own him. Like, I would take the 1% own Jamison Crowder and hope for that talent overtaking Tyler Boyd in Carolina. That might get to double-digit percentages.
Yeah, he was on the list, so I totally agree that he's a little more talented than most of these receivers down here in this 4,200 range. Ryan Grant's pretty similar situation. I expect them not to be as far in front and be throwing the football more. 4,100, the number 2 in Indiana, Indiana, I guess that works. Danny Amendola, which is just like the most disgusting play ever.
No, don't do it.
I
played him week 1.
I played him week 1 too. It was awful. It was just bad news.
But at least this is the Raiders flying west to east. Like, this is one of the longest flights there are in the NFL for a 10 a.m. Pacific kickoff. I just could see Danny Amendola just running havoc over the middle of the field here. I hate Danny Amendola. I was really down on him in the preseason, but I think this is a really good Amendola spot. And the aforementioned Brandon Marshall, like, he gets all these dumb targets, and they're not going anywhere. He's 4,500 against a mediocre Dallas defense. And then Sterling Shepard, 4,500 against the Houston Texans defense. That if Barkley's not getting 14 targets, I expect Shepard's targets to go up.
I don't see enough upside from that offense to condone using Sterling Shepard here, because the pass rush they're going to face this week, especially if Clowney's back, is going to be worse than it was last week.
Right.
Pat, I'm honestly surprised that you are not into Benjamin. This is like the exact type of guy that you would have touted to me like 3 years ago. Like the guy on the total dumpster fire offense who's just like the only thing that they have going.
No. Yeah, see, you're getting me confused. Remember how much I used to love like Ted Ginn every single week?
No, it was the Texans' third guy. Oh, not Bruce Ellington, but the other guy.
Braxton Miller.
No, it was Bruce Ellington.
Okay, yeah, Bruce. I swear, like every week on the show, you were like, "Dude, you got to play this guy."
Anytime Will Fuller's hurt, I do play Bruce Ellington. He's like $3,500. He always pays off value. Yeah. But Ginn was my guy for years. Just like use him in GPPs. He's like the homeless man's Tyreek Hill.
You're not wrong.
And he was a week winner for a lot of people, and he was always a cheap value. But like down in that range, like it's tough. I'm kind of with you, Siege, on Brandon Marshall. I guess now we're getting to more expensive mid-tier receivers, but I don't hate Cooper Kupp.
I would say Cooper Kupp and Corey Davis. I know like the matchup is terrible, but Corey Davis target share is like wild right now, and they're definitely going to be in a negative game script in this one. So assuming Mariota is able to play, I think Corey Davis is playable.
Here's the problem with Cooper Kupp. Like, his ceiling requires 2 touchdowns. It's just so hard for him to get 2 touchdowns on the Rams.
I mean, that's a fair point. It can, though. I guess it depends on how you want to play this. I think if you use Cooper Kupp, you almost have to use Goff as your quarterback at the same time, just to try to maximize the potential that he has.
Sounds like you like this game for the over, Pat. You've mentioned that's your 3rd or 4th reference now. That you think that this game shoots out.
Well, it is that I maybe I'm missing it. Everyone's talking about the Rams defense and how good the Rams defense is, but who the fuck have they played? Nobody.
Yeah, it's also the most talented defense that might have been assembled in the last 20 years in the NFL.
It's the best defense on paper. We've seen these super teams not work out. Like now that, especially with what Rivers can do on the other side of the ball and how he's just not afraid to play the dink and dunk game, that could be highly problematic for a defense that's funneling everything towards the middle.
I was gonna say, I wonder, you having the hottest take so far of the show was definitely a long shot heading into this one.
That's not the hottest take of the show. I really don't think it
Thinking
is.
The Chargers are going to put up a ton of points on the Rams is definitely a hot take.
I think the Rams and Chargers both, but I could see this game. You talked about that Texans-Seattle game from last year. This is that game that I think has the potential this week.
If you think that you got to be locking Melvin Gordon and like Tyrell into like all your lineups.
Why Tyrell? Why not Mike Williams, who's way better?
Snap count.
Yeah, Tyrell just plays more.
But
gets down the field too.
But doesn't do anything.
I mean, Mike Williams, he got some random touchdowns. It's not like he's seeing a big target share or anything.
Yeah, but he's Mike Williams, doer of things. Tyrell Williams, doer of nothings.
The Gazelle gets around, man. He does what he needs to do.
I'll wait and see whether Benjamin's back or not.
I'm not playing either one of them though, because I think the Rams defense is amazing.
Yeah, maybe I'm just dead wrong on this one. I think that the Chargers can put up points in this situation, though. I like the way that I'm more concerned. Like, it's even when I talked about like Eckler earlier, I could see Eckler having a lot of play in this game too. Like the running backs between Gordon and Eckler could end up taking up like 20 plus targets in this game.
Certainly possible.
And I think that's a way that you would want to get to the Rams instead of just trying to run the ball down their throats. Just use these dink and dunk passes. Anyway, we're not talking about running backs anymore. Let's go to the top of wide receivers because Michael Thomas is now the most expensive. Then it's Tyreek Hill. Then it's DeAndre Hopkins, Odell Beckham, Julio Jones, Thielen Diggs, Adams, AJ Green, Keenan Allen, who I don't especially love here, although if they get him to the slot, he might be pretty good. Cooks and T.Y. Hilton. Siege, from this top end, if you had to play one of these expensive wide receivers, who would it be? Because I'm really looking at Hopkins and I'm really looking at Julio.
I think it's Julio. Just, I don't know, though. Lattimore is good. Maybe it just might be Tyreek Hill, to be honest.
Tyreek Hill is one of those just play in GPPs every week because of the game-breaking potential he can bring, but that is a massive price for Hill.
I know, but if he goes and puts up, he's a guy I love being super high priced because it's just gonna plummet his ownership into the single digits, and it's
there's no way he ends up in single digits.
Maybe 10, 11. People aren't going to pay $8,500 for Tyreek Hill.
Davis,
I just don't think that's going to happen.
Davis, people are just going to jam as many players from this game in as possible, right?
2 years ago, I would have said for sure, but I think, Pat, I think you kind of underestimate how many people listen to these tout shows and look at projections where and every fake sharp tout is going to be well, actually, regression to the mean and overexposure and bleep blop blue. I think Tyreek will be 12% probably, not 35%.
Does that make him a good play then?
I mean, yeah, you gotta really, I think you kind of have to make a decision on what you think about Mahomes and this offense. You have to be the solid actual mathematical take is, well, clearly no quarterback is this good. We've never seen anything like this. So the smart and evidence-based approach to take would be you just full fade the Chiefs offense this week because they will be higher owned than what a mathematical and Bayesian approach to them would be. Or you take the other opinion that the people who get rich in life are people who take and extrapolate something from a very small sample and are ahead of the curve, and you absolutely attack it. But you have to decide which camp you fall in before you start making lineups.
So, see,
when you said completely fade, by the way, you mean completely fade the passing attack and just lock in Hunt. You wouldn't actually just – okay.
Yeah.
That's what I assumed you meant, but I don't think.
Or even just take other pieces, leave Hill to the side and just hope it almost plays out like 3 quarters did in Pittsburgh, where Hill had done nothing.
I actually think Watkins might approach double digits this week.
Yeah, he's gonna be very popular.
After
being unowned last week.
Yeah, people just see what happens the week before, and then they just jam that in.
Because I think I still like Hopkins and Julio the best of these top guys.
Julio is clearly the best play. I made a decision. So I made my decision about what I'm doing with Watson and the Texans, which is I'm going 0% Watson and Hopkins all year long. I'm just not interested.
Well, if that's the case, then you should be using Will Fuller then. If you want to get a piece of this Texans offense.
No, I don't. I don't want any
with the high.
I don't want any piece.
See?
I don't like these guys. I think Watson is overpriced, overrated, and I just don't. I'm not into it.
CG using Fuller?
I can't believe I didn't use him last week. I'm still really pissed off about that. I really thought the Texans were just going to go in there and just destroy the Titans. I was not really even looking at any other scenario where the Titans were competitive. I probably will have some, but I'm not wild about the price, and I'm not really wild about him in general.
Well, here's the thing.
I like him when he's in the 4K range. In the 6K range, it's just is he really going to beat Kenny Stills?
Yeah, he is.
Fuller's target volume makes him a good play when he's cheap and a bad play when he's expensive, because there's never a 20% chance that he'll have the 2-touchdown, 112-yard game, but there is an 8% chance of it. So you just go based on that.
Yeah, but he's been doing that more. Like, if we just, as you talked about earlier, if you take these small samples and try to project something forward, we saw the target share that he got last week. They were down in that game, and that might not be a thing against the Giants. We'll see as 6-point favorites at home. But for his price, like, it's almost like Tyreek Hill. The price is almost irrelevant in a way, because what you're using him for are these gigantic games. And it doesn't matter if he's 4,800 or if he's 5,900 at that point. Either he's going to score like 2 points or he's going to score 30. The
problem is the ownership, though. Like, Will Fuller could get pretty popular. Like, they're like, oh, this guy has a big ceiling and he's not like 70. Like, instead of paying up for Diggs, like, oh, I can save 2,000 and I can play Will Fuller who has the same ceiling. Like, the reason Tyreek Hill is so interesting because he's going to be just like low owned to unowned on one of the highest team totals of the week. You don't have that kind of situation with Will Fuller.
Okay, so we talked about, you mentioned that I really like this Rams-Chargers game, and I do, and a lot of people are going to be using the Chiefs and the 49ers stacks and just loading
Please don't use the 49ers this week. Please, just don't do this to yourself. We've seen this show so many times. Like, they spread the ball around. Like, maybe Davis was right. Like, just pick a guy that you're going to play this year and just play that guy.
The guy's Goodwin, right?
Yeah, but he's not healthy.
Yeah, but he will always be the highest owned guy, so you have to take that into account.
Yeah, he's only 5,500, and people will probably not use him because they're worried about the quad. Now, he might not play, so that's Pat's hot take of the week. If he doesn't play, don't use him. See, I'm good at this stuff. But if he does play, that Q tag next to his name is going to devalue him in a lot of people's minds because they won't. And I would take the risk on him in this game because, like you mentioned, all the shootout potential that even if he's not 100%, and we don't know what his status is really, but we just know that he's going to play. And it's a situation where you just roll the dice on the upside, don't you?
I don't know. I tend to just view receivers in terms of like, find me the guy with the most targets and the highest ADOT, and those are the guys I want to play. But I basically just make selections based off of projected volume. I try and not get too much into like matchup and efficiency and stuff like that. I just want guys with the most opportunity.
Yeah, I'm with you on the efficiency side. I do like it looking at matchups. But
right.
with coaches that I have trusted. With coaches I have trusted.
Matchup analysis in the NFL is so noisy because it requires you to efficiently project like how a defensive coordinator is thinking, and we can't even predict how offensive coordinators are going to think. And also people forget that like a 3-year sample of the Falcons allowing like a lot of receptions to running backs, that might just be complete noise because it's like 300 total interactions, which is like nothing.
So Pat, before I respond, can I take it back? Can I just retract all my Aaron Jones take?
Yeah, sure. Why is he?
Came out. He's like third string on the depth chart, so can I take a total mea culpa pass now?
No, I'm just going to re-edit it. I'm going to re-edit it that you've now heard this news, and I'm going to like piece together little clips, and you're going to be like, hey, and you're like, Aaron Jones is an even better play now. Can you please say that?
All right, so I just got to avoid saying those words so you don't have that opportunity.
Can you please just look into the camera and say, I think Aaron Jones is a fantastic play?
Yeah, I think Aaron Jones is an awful play.
See, that's perfect. I can work with that.
Yeah, you can.
3 guys right in a row here. I mean, Cooks is one of them. And like I said, I like the Rams in this spot. But Cooper, Sanders, and Aguilar are all right there. I know they signed Jordan Matthews, your buddy, Davis, but I still like Aguilar in this spot. Sanders has been playing the slot so much. And we just talked about Boyd and how he kind of lit up the Ravens last week. That could be a really good spot for him running out of the slot. And then Amari Cooper. I'm never an Amari Cooper guy, but I mean, if he's the only guy they want to, maybe this week they started Jordy Nelson. Like, that's their entire game plan. Every week they'll pick one guy and they'll throw the ball to him every single time. And then T.Y. Hilton's right there too, who's had 2 really good games in a row.
That does sound like total Gruden logic. Like, all right, this week we're just giving the ball to Jared Cook. All right, this week we're just giving the ball to Amari Cooper. Like, this dude is running an offense from like a college in like 1998. It's embarrassing, man. Like how simplistic their stuff is. Like I'm pretty sure like if you've read one book about like football formations and plays, you could figure out what the Raiders are doing. It's like real bad.
If I was the Raiders GM, I would be pumped. It's like John Gruden gets blamed for everything. This is great. And I've made all these terrible decisions, like sign Derek Carr to that awful contract so we couldn't sign Khalil Mack. But, oh, look, we can now blame John Gruden for everything. This is great.
I mean, yeah, they're both bad. Like,
they're both terrible. That's my
the
point.
Raiders organization, from like the top down to like their offensive quality control coaches, they're all making suboptimal decisions.
Yeah, well, I mean, most coaches in the NFL make sense. Their decisions are just so suboptimal. It's noticeable compared to all the other suboptimal.
I actually think a lot of coaches have been a lot better this year. I found myself much less often being like, well, this is terrible. Like, for example, like that Thursday night game, the Ravens-Bengals game, I was like, this is a well-coached game. These teams are...
Bill Belichick lost his mind twice. And, like, he's supposed to be good.
Belichick, like, hot take, Belichick's probably a little overrated in terms of, like, X's and O's stuff.
Probably. I still can't believe they freaking just didn't go for it on that fourth down. I was really mad.
Happens.
It does. But I love T.Y. Hilton. Love T.Y. Hilton. Let's like Jalen Mills is awful. We've known this for a long time. And it's really not going to change anything this week. I think Hilton puts up a monster performance on the road.
Sanders is like a very good won't pop in projection, so therefore won't be owned in these larger field tournament sort of plays. And he is coming out of the slot. And Demarius like seems like he's like a little banged up right now. He had to leave the game last week with something and came back in, so probably should shift the targets his way a little bit more.
Joe Flacco's terrible too. Can get you some short fields.
That's true. Sanders did leave the game momentarily there as well. I believe with a knee injury, he ended up coming back to against the Raiders. Aguilar is just the other one that's right there. And maybe we'll transition into... Actually, the final thing on receivers I wanted to say is that if you're going to take a more balanced approach at running back, which it seems like no one is doing, everyone's going to pay up and then hit that middle and probably use Corey Clement. That seems like right now what the chalky build is going to be. I talked about that Rams-Chargers shootout. Everyone's talking about the shootout with the 49ers and Chiefs. Why not just humble that Falcons-Saints game and take Michael Thomas and Julio and start your build that way?
I mean, Julio is like, I mean, this dude being 7,900 is a crime against daily fantasy pricing. Like, it's wild.
Siege, what do you think of that game, though, as the stack game?
I think it's fine. I think like there's going to be a subsection of your last multi-entry players that are just going to assign like 15 to 20% of just to that game just based on the total alone. And I feel like I just don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be right where it should be in terms of ownership. I think it's fine. I think I would rather take a stand on Ridley instead of Julio and just hope that Marcus Lattimore starts playing like Marcus Lattimore again.
Yeah, but I mean, there's
big old pass on Calvin Ridley for me.
There's no guarantee it's not Sanu this week. Week 1 it was Sanu. Last week it was Ridley. It could be Sanu again.
Yeah, but we saw more 3-wide sets with no Freeman. Like and like they didn't have the 2 running back sets. It's not like they used Coleman out wide. So I do believe in Ridley's role, and he looked really good too, I might add. And we see this with rookie receivers. Like they start out slow and their role builds as the season goes on. So I think it's just a really good spot to just buy a cheap piece of that team. And then it lets me kind of not have to use if I get a cheap Ridley touchdown, it's like, okay, now I can use Kamara and Ridley. That's like 13,000 on my cap. And like, that's not going to kill me. And I'm getting exposure to a really high total game.
Quarterbacks, because I want to talk about Nelson Aguilar. I want to talk about Zach Ertz. So I want to talk about Carson Wentz coming back. Good spot. Davis, is that a stack you can put in? Because I think if you're going to use Carson Wentz, you got to use his passing options.
No, I'm not really interested in Carson Wentz.
Siege?
No, not for me either.
Do you think that's going to be the prevalent line of thought here, that people will not use Carson Wentz first week back because they're too terrified? But this is a fantastic spot for him if he is healthy.
There's just like 10 better plays probably than Carson Wentz.
Okay. Who's the best?
Either Cam at 6K or Breeze at 6.4.
Siege, who are the best quarterback plays?
I mean, I'm just going to say Patrick Mahomes until someone proves me wrong.
Yeah, that's also, and they've like quarterback salaries are like so flat on DraftKings now. Like there's a 2K difference between the most expensive guys and the cheapest guys.
Like, it's not just like, I know there's regression, right? But when they were 5 wide against the Steelers, I was just like, they're going to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of like, it was like, oh, Patrick Mahomes figured out who the one-on-one matchup was. Patrick Mahomes got the guy the ball. They got like another first down. I just don't know how anyone stops that. Like, I don't know if anyone is deep enough in the secondary other than, say, the Rams, like, to literally just stop a 5-wide attack. Like, there's going to be a mismatch on the field no matter what team you're playing. I don't know. If Andy Reid just doesn't do Andy Reid things and go into, like, 12 formation, I think he's going to be really, really good until, like, someone will eventually figure it out. But we saw it with the Wildcat. It took, like, a whole year.
I mean, the thing is, like, if Reed really is just like, whatever, I don't care, we're just running the air raid, that's a defense that doesn't really have there's not like a way to stop that offense from producing points and yards.
Right. It's like Patrick Mahomes' offense in college.
Right. WSU just throws the ball 80 times a game in college running that offense, and they just don't get stopped.
And Texas Tech's kind of the same way. And like, we haven't even seen the Patrick Mahomes rushing touchdown yet. Like, he's got rushing upside too. And we haven't even come. Like,
they haven't done the read option yet. That's coming.
And they haven't even needed to. Like, I think I'm just gonna play him until, like, this doesn't finish in the top 5 of quarterbacks, and then I'll probably still play him. Like,
yeah,
I realistically will probably play Patrick Mahomes 16 weeks this year.
All right. So how highly owned in the Millionaire Maker do you think Mahomes gets? 30%?
Too high. No, like
never gets
like,
to 30%.
Like 18 probably.
So he could push 20%.
And that, by the way, is that's like an egregious projection for a quarterback on a 13-game slate. That's so high.
How highly owned do you think Garoppolo will be, as that people will be real sneaky and go on to Garoppolo?
Way too high. Way too high.
So I guess
this is having ceiling.
Okay, this leads me to my overall question, because we skipped it when we talked about receivers. We're skipping it now when we talk to quarterbacks. They're giant favorites, and everyone expects them to blow out the Bills. But Cousins, Thielen, Diggs, why can't they score all their points that way?
Yeah, I like Diggs and Thielen both a lot. I think they're both even. Like, Diggs and Thielen are like cash plays to me.
The price is just too high. Like, if they didn't have that overtime and, like, that awful roughing the call passer penalty, like, they'd all be $1,000 cheaper. Literally the entire team.
But sure, but now you're probably going to get each one of those guys at sub 3% now.
Nah, one, where are you going to find the money? And two, like, just give me T.Y. Hilton for 1,000 less. That maybe like 3% higher ownership.
Like, I don't know if I would play Diggs independent of playing Cousins, but just playing Cousins, Thielen, and Diggs. Like, if I'm trying to load up on an offense that's projected to score a ton of points, that's one, and no one wants to play it.
I just hate rostering pocket quarterbacks in DFS. I just hate it. Just straight out hate it.
All right. Are there any other quarterbacks, Davis, that you would put onto your radar here? Because I have interest in Goff and Rivers, and the other one would just be Matt Ryan at $5,700. If I want to save money, that's who I save money with.
Yeah, Matt Ryan, I think, is actually probably looks like he's going to end up in my cash lineup right now. It's Wednesday. There's a lot of stuff left to happen, but in my initial run of projections, it looks like he's the most optimal cash quarterback.
Siege?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I just think it's funny that everyone's all in the Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G could get a lot of ownership. Like, he hasn't had a ceiling game in the NFL. Like, he hasn't had one. He hasn't had a single week in the NFL as a starting quarterback where he's won you anything.
Well, I in terms of like DraftKings plays this week, I'd rather play Breeze, I'd rather play Wentz, I'd rather play Wilson, I'd rather play Watson, I'd rather play Cam and Goff and Rivers than Jimmy G.
I agree with most of that list. But yeah, I just don't see – I think people will play Jimmy G. I think they'll see that nice 32 number next to up. And it's like, oh, every game shot out so far, so let me just play Jimmy G. Let me play those. I really think the 49ers ownership is going to be the biggest mistake of the week. People are going to be like, oh, I can save money with Pettis. I can save money with Kittle. I can save money with Garcon. And it's a high total game. And I think that's where the biggest mistake will be.
Davis, now, unless Aaron Jones rushes for 8 touchdowns, why is Rodgers not someone anyone's going to use? Too expensive?
Yeah, people just don't. Generally, the most expensive quarterback doesn't get like super owned unless the total for that game is outrageous. And people this week, like your casual observer, will play Mahomes instead. The total for that game, not tremendously high. Rodgers is hurt. Rodgers not showing up as the top projected quarterback in optimals. So there's a lot of reasons that he won't be like the highest owned guy.
But it is, I mean, I just talked about like that Cousins type of stack, and I know the Green Bay, if you just wanted to use like Adams and use Aaron Rodgers, that's going to be expensive as well. I think you could get away with just using those two guys, but it seems like another spot where these are two excellent high-end players that just no one's touching.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like a Rodgers Geronimo Allison stack is pretty nice. Allison, really cheap piece of that offense, and has ran as many routes as Cobb and played almost as many snaps.
Siege, what's your take on Rodgers here?
At some point, you just can't play everyone. Like, I completely understand why you would play him. I just can't see a world in which he makes the final cut.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Just with Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes right there separated by $100, who's a better play? Aaron Rodgers at 4% or Mahomes at 20%?
Mahomes at 20%.
Davis?
Yeah, Mahomes at 20%. I'm like a Mahomes truther for sure.
I am absolutely a Mahomes truther too. I just buy me all the Mahomes shares I can get.
Okay. Just wanted to throw it out there to everyone just to see if there could be. I mean, this Aaron Rodgers guy here, he's okay.
It's the Chiefs defense is just so bad too that you just know that they're never going to be up like 28-0.
I'm really trying to. I really do want to play Mahomes and play everyone in that, at least on the Kansas City side of the ball. But I'm really starting to think I might just try to match the field on Mahomes, on Hill, on Watkins potentially, and Kelsey, and just play some lineups that just have Kareem Hunt in them.
Oh, I'm definitely doing that. Like the post-it notes right there. Like I am going to do that because like I can see that. I could also see you needing like Mahomes, Hunt, and like one of the other pass catchers too. I could easily see Hunt get one on the ground, one in the air, and you need Hunt, but like you also need everyone else.
Tight end, Zach Ertz is the most expensive with Gronk off the slate. Kelsey.
Okay, before we go back to quarterback real quick, one more guy. Andrew Luck, 5,600 against a pretty porous Eagles defense. Like they've given up points now to Ryan Fitzpatrick, and they should have given up more points than Matt Ryan. 5,600 for Luck, who threw 53 times in week 1, I think is too cheap.
I think I would go with Matt Ryan or Rivers over him. Davis?
I mean, yeah, Matt Ryan is like projected to be a big part of my ownership this week. So yeah, I definitely agree. Like Luck is just playing like not interesting dink and dunk football. You gotta take shots or run to be a good GPP quarterback.
He is running.
Is he?
Yeah.
I don't know. That
He
could
hasn't
be
been very successful at it, but he has been running. Yeah.
He's been doing
like designed runs. I'm going to be honest. Actually, you know what? I did watch the Cincinnati game and he did not run in that game.
No,
he tried to run more against Washington. It wasn't very successful.
He had a few nice runs, actually, against Cincinnati. I just remember he's doing the Russell Wilson type running where when everything breaks down and he needs those 4 yards for the first down, he just runs back and forth till he can find the spot and goes upfield. But he's not breaking off like 35-yard runs on designed plays, but he is attempting to run when everything breaks down in front of him. So, tight ends.
Yeah.
It's 5,600. It just feels like a little too cheap for a guy. Like this game could quietly shoot out too. Like Philly, the Eagles defense, not that good.
Tight ends. Let's talk about Philly. We got Zach Ertz, Kelsey, Reed, Olsen, Jimmy Graham, Kittle. Kittle's now up to $4,500. Ingram stays at 43. Kyle Rudolph, Jared Cook, $4,000. Have fun with that. Davis, where would you go at tight end? Would you go with one of these top guys, or do you have to pay down at the position based on everything we've talked about, where guys are expensive this week?
I think you just go Doyle in cash. Probably like
Hooper?
Austin Hooper is there in tournaments, and then Ertz is there in tournaments. Kittle is there in tournaments. But yeah, definitely probably just locking Doyle in cash games.
Why would you play Jack Doyle in cash? Why?
He's just like running all these routes and is just always out there, and they're passing.
There's lots of guys that are always out there. Like,
not always out there. Actually, you know what? I like Trey Burton too at 3,900.
That's exactly where I was going. I give me Trey Burton first at 3,900 against Arizona.
Doyle is like classic guy who's running under expectation and then has 20 catches in 3 games, and then everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's probably a good idea to play him on DraftKings, which is a PPR site."
I get the idea of Doyle. I just with Ebron there, I just always wonder. How
many targets do you think Ebron has through 2 games?
7.
Without looking?
7.
I think 7.
He's got 9.
How many are in the red zone?
He's got 3 3 end zone targets.
How many does
That's
Doyle
a lot.
have?
But here's the thing. It's not, though, because football is such a game of like, this play call happened to be here. You could very easily see Ebron with 0 end zone targets the rest of the way. I don't think it's like a conceited plan from Frank Reich and the coaching staff to be like, Ebron is our dude in the red zone.
I mean, they signed him for a reason. What was that reason exactly?
That Frank Reich likes to use 12 personnel. He needed a second tight end who could both block and catch. And whatever you feel about Ebron as a receiver over the past in his career, he's an elite blocker, and him and Doyle complement each other well.
I mean, I don't know. I guess my issue is just like Jack Doyle a lot reminds me of Trey Burton a lot. And it's like Reich just underutilized Trey Burton his entire time there in Philly. So I'm a little worried.
Are we worried about the volume that Trey Burton's going to see in this offense?
No, not yet.
Yeah, he's got 10 targets through 2 games. He has an end zone target. I'm not particularly worried about it.
I'd be worried about it in this game in particular because it just seems like they're just going to run the entire time and it's not going to matter.
Well, you got to remember, this offense has been absolutely like the stone nuts when they've been on script in the first quarter of these games, and Burton's been a big part of that offense that's been on script. They've had like shuffle pass plays to him in both week 1 and 2 when they were on script. So I'm not worried about it really.
I think I would rather play Hooper at $2,900, roll the dice on that, or just pay for Kittle at $45 if I can.
Honestly, Jared Cook's in a really good spot.
Jared Cook.
It's a really good spot against like the Dolphins still have not figured out their coverage linebacker issue. They don't have one. And it's not like that. I mean, I guess Jalen Richard could run routes, but like we always fade Cook after the big game, but he had a bad game last week. So now we're safe to go back to him. He can have another big game. It's a really good spot.
But what if this is the week, like we mentioned, that John Gruden just says, hey, Jordy Nelson, your time is now, pal.
Okay. I mean, it's possible. I mean, it's all these tight ends have a lot of risk attached to them. That's why they're like under 5K. But they also do have a bunch of upside as well.
I suppose, but like Jared Cook's what, $4,000? Like you can find better guys for cheaper. Doyle is better.
How is Doyle better?
Doyle's going to end up with, unless Jared Cook ends up with 20 targets, Doyle will probably more than double his target share.
Target share is nice, but the number of it's just raw numbers matter in fantasy. Like target share is nice, but you also have to purchase. Like, guess what? The Raiders are going to be behind. The Raiders are going to be throwing the football. Like,
so, you just said that Andrew Luck is going to throw the ball over 50 times in this game, and they're going to be trailing Philly the entire time.
I said he could.
And do you think Derek Carr is going to throw the ball 50 times?
He's going to have to because they're going to be behind because they're awful.
It seems very.
The Dolphins linebacking core is so bad. They're awful. They're so bad and they can't cover anyone. Davis, and they haven't faced a tight end yet this year either.
Davis, you can be the tiebreaker. Are you team Doyle or team Jared Cook?
I'm team Doyle, man. He's like I don't know, like he's just ran bad through 2 games. Like I'm definitely team Doyle.
What about
Doyle's like one of the most overrated players in the NFL. He's just not that good.
No, Siege, you are 100% correct that Doyle is not very good.
I like to try at all times to put players that don't suck on my fantasy roster. And yes, I know I just recommended Jared Cook before I said that, but
no, that's like my biggest flaw as a fantasy player in the past has been trying too hard to only use good players. And I'm not going to do that anymore because it's like you lose money worrying more about talent than usage.
The thing is just the Dolphins haven't faced a tight end yet. Like Delaney Walker in week 1 got hurt during that game, and that game was just kind of just like all over the place. But even then he had 7 targets before he got hurt. I just think you're going to see a lot of targets for Cook here. I think you're going to see somewhere between 7 and 10 targets, and 4K, I'll take that.
Doyle Davis? Do you have any thoughts on Will Disley and the way that he's being used in this offense?
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep not playing him and hope that I don't know. This dude had I think 400 receiving yards in college. He was supposed to be like the best blocking tight end in his class. I just if I end up eating an 800-yard, 5-touchdown Will Dissly season, then so be it.
Siege?
Yeah, what Davis said.
Are there any like sub 3K tight ends, just absolute shots in the dark that you might want to take this week?
Yeah, I have a couple. Do you have any, Davis?
I mean, Hooper is like a shot in the dark in terms of projecting his week usage.
Yeah, Hurst is out. So if he misses, I actually have interest in Mark Andrews. He got a lot of the passing work after that injury, and Boyle has like been playing well, but just for some reason Flacco just doesn't give him consistent targets. So I could see that for 2,600.
I like Mandrews.
That's the second time in 2 days that Mark Andrews has come up on the show. This is blowing my mind.
What can you do?
I guess you got to use Mark Andrews. I'd rather.
Also, Antonio Gates is 2,600, and the Rams are kind of a running back tight end funnel defense.
So the way that we've kind of broke this down, that your must plays of the week are Mark Andrews and Aaron Jones, Siege?
Absolutely not on Aaron Jones. No.
All right, that is perfect. That's exactly what I need to splice that in. Jones.
This is a disaster.
Oh, this is going to be fantastic. I'm just going to make that a clip and just spread it all throughout the internet. Your must plays of the week are Mark Andrews and Aaron Jones, Siege?
I love Aaron Jones. Love Aaron Jones.
It's going to be awesome.
Fake news, Pat. Here we go.
Yeah, listen, it's real news. I've edited it together. It looks like a stream of consciousness. Either way.
Oh, one more cheap tight end. Ian Thomas, the Greg Olsen replacement, he's going to randomly put up like a 25-point game. Like, he's looked good in his limited reps. I'm sure it's not knowing the playbook win, but he did play like every snap last week. So eventually he's going to get a bigger role in the passing game. Not good at football.
I don't like playing bad players. Play Mark Andrews and Ian Thomas.
Ian Thomas is good, man. He had a great career at Indiana. Don't make fun of Ian Thomas. Good player.
Are you like Cuss?
And Mark Andrews was a beast at Oklahoma too. Like these
really guys are fucking good in college. That's why they're in the NFL.
Yeah,
that is not true. That is not true. That is not true that a lot of these guys were good in college or even at the combine, but Mark Andrews was good at both. And Mark Andrews is also good in the preseason and good in the actual NFL.
All right. So play Mark Andrews. Both of your guys' lock of the week?
I'm not going to go that far.
See?
I certainly think on a slate where you need some salary savings, like finding the extra 1,000 at tight end off of a guy like Jack Doyle, like Mark Andrews is not 1,000. Like that $1,000 at wide receiver and running back gets you a lot more. That's all I'll say.
Okay. I mean, that I completely agree with that point. I think that's a very good point to make, that if it gets you up at another position like running back, then it probably is worth the trade-off based on what the expected value would be for a tight end, because once you start talking about tight ends in this range, it is super low. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Defenses. Dallas's D, 2,200. Lock him in.
I like them, but the Ravens at home to Case Keenum, who's just like Keenum, I actually think is good, but he just kind of tosses the ball up, and that will be a good team for turnover opportunities. And then obviously, a lot of the times we recommend fading the chalk defense, but if you're firing a bunch of lineups in, it's irresponsible to not have some Vikings lineups at home as a 17-point favorite.
I mean, the Vikings D will be fine. I just don't know how much upside they come with this week. I could see it being a lot like the Rams last week in Arizona, where they shut them out and they scored 13 DraftKings points. Like, big deal.
Josh Allen's way more turnover prone.
Allen takes shots, though. Bradford's not taking shots. Allen's like legit trying to push the ball down the field. That's a big difference.
Okay, sure, but maybe they end up scoring points then.
I mean, that's fine. I think you're totally willing to concede giving up 14 points if Allen turns the ball over 3 times and gets sacked 5 times.
But I guess the problem is, if we're now talking about like downgrading at tight end, trying to save $1,000 or making sure you have to go down there, doesn't it seem irresponsible to pay $4,300 for a defense?
That's why he said if you're playing a bunch of tournament teams.
Like how many tournament teams would it take for you to start playing the Vikings defense?
10.
Like 10 probably.
So you play them in 1 of 10 lineups? Yeah,
10% sounds about right to them.
I don't know.
And it's not like they're going to be chalk either because they're so expensive. This isn't like the Ravens defense week 1 where they were only 3,300.
And they weren't even chalk, by the way.
Yeah, which was kind of crazy. I think for the price point and where it is, I think these two defenses just will go under-owned because of price. But I think the Jags have more upside here than the Vikings do.
See, no, Tennessee reminds me of a team that's just going to, like, hide in their shell. Like, I did this last week with Houston D. I'm not doing this again. Like, Tennessee just is going to try to, like, run the ball, play action, short passes, like, not turn the football over, get the ball out quick. Like, I have literally no interest in the Jaguars.
Okay, what about the Texans D this week against Eli?
That whole range has got, like, a bunch of options. Like, as much as you love Phillip Rivers, I think the Rams are really interesting because Phillip Rivers will drop back to pass, and he is turnover prone.
Yeah, listen, I think that you can like Rivers and like the Rams D independently. I think that's fine. Like Rivers, a good fantasy day for Rivers could be 4 touchdowns and 4 picks.
Right. No, I totally get that. I think that whole range is interesting. The Dolphins are interesting as well. They've been playing pretty good defense, and they get the Raiders in a really bad spot for the Raiders. But I have one that's just really off the board. Actually, 2. One will kind of get laughed at, but I just want to make sure. I like Arizona in this spot at home. Like Trubisky, we've mentioned, has turned over the football a bunch, and they're 2,400. They're really cheap, which is if you need like a bargain-based defense. Let me ask you one question, though. Are we sure the Chiefs' defense is, like, horrific?
Okay, so this is what I wanted to kind of go with here, that the way that Mahomes and this passing offense don't score a bunch of points here is if somehow the defense scores a bunch of points because Jimmy G just throws picks because he's forced into a situation where he has to throw the ball 50 times, 55 times. That if you were going to fade the top end on some of those guys, that playing their defense might not be ludicrous, that maybe they end up with a special teams touchdown, maybe they get a defensive touchdown, and that just takes the ball out of Mahomes' hands.
Yeah,
sure.
I just, again, it's their first game at home, right? Like, could they it just the 49ers offense, too, has just been really terrible in the red zone ever since Jimmy G got there. And it's like, okay, if you give up, like, 4 field goals and a touchdown, you give up 19 points. But if you get a couple turnovers for 2,300, like, that's fine if it's getting you another player somewhere else.
Yeah, well, Davis, the first one I mentioned was Dallas at 2,200. Like, why won't they have 6 sacks in this game?
If the game goes slow, that's certainly possible. And I just don't. I would prefer to take a cheap defense at home, honestly.
I can see that, but this just seems like a very good floor spot for the Cowboys defense, especially if it won't be a super high scoring game, so they're probably not going to get minused. It's going to be a situation where we know that Seattle cannot run the ball. They're going to have to pass, and this offensive line sucks, and Russell Wilson's willing to concede sacks. We've seen it.
This is exactly what I said last week when I played the Houston Texans defense. Like, this is the exact same logic train I went down. So I get it, but I also don't really feel like repeating that experience.
Okay, well, I mean, what about you say the Eagles' defense sucks, but they're going to be facing a lot of passing volume. If they can get to the passer, Luck he threw another 2 picks last week, didn't he?
I think I would just take the Texans at home or Miami first. Or find the 100 for the Rams.
All right, we've talked around this a whole bunch of times. So, Davis, if you're going to play a defense here, like your cash defense, who's your cash defense?
It's going to be one of these home teams in between 26 and 2,800. I think the Texans are definitely in play. I think the Dolphins are in play. I think the Ravens are in play. Those are probably the teams I'm looking at. That's normally not a decision I make early in the week because you want to kind of look at like line movement and injuries and stuff like that.
Like for me,
by the way, Carolina's in play too. Like,
yep.
Cincinnati on the road is not Cincinnati at home.
True. I think that I'm going to go with the Cowboys most of the time at 2,200 and just save the money in that spot, or I'll pay up and use the Texans, and I'll probably end up taking a flyer on Jacksonville in a spot and probably the Chiefs in a spot, but I'm really going to concentrate around those 2 defenses. So, Siege, what would be the one that you would go to like right away, like your base defense?
Miami?
Really?
I mean, Derek Carr's not very good, and he's been throwing the football. The Dolphins have 6 turnovers in 2 weeks. And I'm not exactly sure why that's going to change now.
But isn't this sort of the same situation as what Davis talked about in terms of Sam Bradford's not a quarterback that's going to push the ball down the field, therefore it limits the amount of fantasy points that defenses can score? Isn't Derek Carr kind of the same way?
No, but Derek Carr is just so bad. He makes terrible short passes too, and those are the ones that can get returned to the house.
That's true. Like when he throws it directly to the other team, who's wide open and no one's around him.
Right, and the guy just walks in the end zone. Like that's worth a lot of fantasy points. So he's an inaccurate short passer. It's not like we're dealing with Alex Smith here.
All right, so let's talk about the stacks of the week. Just in terms of pure point totals, 56, the highest of the week, is going to be San Francisco, so 56.5, sorry. San Francisco, KC, Saints, Atlanta is 53. There's no other game on the main slate that is above 50. So Davis, which one of those two games interests you the most? Obviously, it's going to be the KC-San Francisco game, but how much more preference do you think that game gets than the Atlanta-New Orleans game?
Way more. And it's just totally based off recent performance. Like if Mahomes had only thrown for 4 touchdowns last week and he had thrown a pick, like it's different. Like honestly, the ownership percentages are different.
Siege, what do you think?
I like you keep saying Kansas City, San Francisco. Like I want to rank like it's clearly Kansas City, New Orleans, Atlanta, and San Francisco is like I'm least interested in San Francisco compared to the other three by far. So
Okay.
like I just have a lot more interest in Kansas City. So like when you ask me to pick a game, like I probably like New Orleans, Atlanta, like the game more, but I like Kansas City the most.
Okay, so let's talk about just individual teams then. It would be Kansas City. Would it be New Orleans or Atlanta for you?
New Orleans. I think New Orleans. New Orleans should be favored in this game. My model has New Orleans as a favorite. I don't know. I think that this is a drastic overreaction.
I don't know if it's a drastic overreaction, but one of the things that I like about the Saints offense is that it seems to me, I mean, you can play Matt Ryan, you can play Julio, you can play Coleman. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's equally as concentrated. It just seems like with the way that the Saints have played through the first 2 games that they're going to get the ball to their big guys when they get in close, where Atlanta seems to do exactly the opposite. So that would worry me a little.
No Deion Jones, too. Like, Kamara's just going to have a field day.
Yeah, so how would you rank the top 3 team stacks here, Davis?
I would go Saints, Chiefs, Falcons.
Okay.
Because I think so little of Steve Sarkisian.
I mean, that's completely fair. So the other ones I want to throw out as team stack, the Rams, the Vikings, the Chargers. Do any of those 3 interest you, Davis?
Contrarian high volume offense. I actually agree with your Chargers take.
Siege?
I like the Eagles.
When I mentioned Wentz, you poo-pooed me.
Yeah, I just don't like his. I think I like the pass. I think I like the receivers or the running. I think I like the receivers the most. They're like Zach Ertz. Like I think Zach Ertz could put up a monster number.
So you don't like to actually stack that team. You just want to use Zach Ertz.
I like Philly. I like the Eagles to score some points. Maybe it's more the Colts side. Like I just think there will be. My problem with the Eagles is just like it's really hard for me to like see Carson Wentz throwing 4 touchdowns just because like they spread the ball around so much. So like that always just kind of limits my interest as a quarterback. But like Zach Ertz could just go up, put up like 10 receptions, 110 yards and a touchdown and just be mandatory.
Yeah, there's something in me that just really thinks that everyone is just overlooking the Vikings. I think they're the highest projected point total on the board, aren't they?
Yeah,
It's possible.
It's like every week it just seems like if you had gone back to Tampa, I mean, or even as a part of that game stack, and maybe you can have your dream and you can play Kelvin Benjamin, Davis. I don't know. But it just seems strange to me that coming off a week where they put up a bunch of points, now is the biggest favorite on the board that no one wants to use anyone on this team.
People just have the game flow concerns basically just because they're projected to be up by so many points.
It is, but don't they have to eventually get up by so many points first?
You're right.
Like
also, I think people are just worried because like they'll probably like first chance they get the bench Cook, they probably will.
Probably, but I mean, Cook is already going to be limited anyway. I mean, we didn't even really talk about Latavius Murray because we don't know the status of Cook, whether he's in or whether he's out, but that would open up another running back on that board at that cheaper value. But do they have a rushing touchdown this year? Don't they just pass for all their touchdowns?
And that feels pretty just like fluky noise to
You're
me.
ready. You're really ready for the Mike Boone, CJ Ham game.
Oh, going ham, yeah. Well, I mean, I think you're right. It is pretty fluky if they've just been passing the entire time, but maybe this is something that they do in their offense. Maybe they want to throw the ball when they get in close. And if we're talking about, hey, Patrick Mahomes is going to throw 6 touchdowns in this game, And we know that he's not going to throw 80 touchdowns this year. Whether they start rushing some in, whether the defense comes in, whether he has a bad game or not, at least with the Vikings, no one's using them. That it's a fluky situation, but they're projected to score a ton of points. It's not unreasonable to think that Kirk Cousins throws 4 touchdowns and 2 of them go to Diggs, 2 of them go to Thielen.
No, it's that this is in the realm of possibility for sure.
It could go to Kyle Rudolph too, though. You never know.
It could, yeah, absolutely. But if you use Cousins and you use those two, it just feels like if we always try to pick up these concentrated offenses where Denver, when Denver was good, you could use Emmanuel Sanders, you could use Demaryius Thomas, and you could be on your way. That's what I kind of see with Philly this week too. You see Wentz, you see Aguilar, you see Ertz. It seems pretty concentrated in a passing attack that way. Rudolph's not being used a ton. He might be used in the red zone and steal a touchdown away from you, but it just seems like market share wise, volume wise, points wise, this is pretty cut and dry here. Like, they don't want to use Treadwell anymore, obviously, because he's terrible. So Thielen, Diggs, Cousins, like, that's a pretty good triangle right there.
Lord Aldrich.
First week on the team?
You know how Lord Aldrich does.
I forgot he was even on that team. That Colts-Eagles line is like the 3rd highest on the main slate, and it's going to get exactly like 0 attention all week.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be a way, like, in order to be contrarian this week, instead of fading ownership and just saying, like, I'm going to pivot off this guy to this guy at a different price, locating the game stack that no one's using, especially because everyone's using one game stack, is probably the way, if you're going to play like 10 or 20 lineups, that, yeah, you're going to have exposure to the KC game, obviously, and the KC offense, but you don't need to go all in on it, I don't think. I think playing Kansas City without San Francisco this week is going to be like a contrarian build. And I think it's got a lot of merit. All right. That'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Davis, any final thoughts?
You know what, Pat? You're right. Make sure you have Cousins, Thielen, Cousins, Diggs stacks.
All right. Yeah, I sold some.
I was going to say Pat's right. The Chargers might be in a better spot than I was giving him credit for.
See, here's the thing. Prolonged exposure to Pat Mayo leads you down a disastrous territory where you lose all your money. Because I start to make a little bit of sense, but I'm just wrong. I just say it with a lot of confidence.
Maybe a good time to end the show then, right?
Absolutely. So, CJ, any final thoughts for you?
Yeah, don't get cute. Don't fade Kansas City.
Okay. Tell us about UrbanPro.
One way or another.
Oh.
One way or another. Make sure, like, if you're going to fade the passing attack, just play Hunt.
Okay. Tell us about UrbanPro.com.
Yeah, so we basically took a lot of the best season-long players in the world that have been kind of boisterous on Twitter and behind the scenes for a while, and gave them a platform to raise the level of conversation in season long. And we've got DFS content as well, and our betting package is off to a strong start. So give us a shout, and we have got awesome discount codes still going for some reason.
Do those discount codes include you coming over and trimming my hedges?
Pat, if you wanted to buy a subscription, I'm sure we could definitely work something. If you paid the full price, we could definitely get your hedges trimmed too.
Excellent. UrbanPro.com. Davis, pimp the TakeCast.
It's just a really good podcast. If you want to learn more about the world, if you want to think more critically about your life, about sports, about economics, about everything, listen to the TakeCast.
Well, I like to be a really balanced individual. Like, I don't like to go too high up, too far left, too far right. I like to stay right in the center. So I'm gonna have to start listening to some alt-right podcast after listening to the TakeCast.
Just listen to Tommy G's No Mercy podcast, and I think it will give you the exact opposite of what the TakeCast gives you.
It's funny, the TakeCast and Tommy G's new No Mercy podcast are two of my favorite podcasts now. They're ones I as soon as they hit my feed, I start listening to. And I had to get caught up on 4 of them. The one you did with Denny was excellent, by the way.
It was very good.
Really enjoyed it. And
I say that with no humility whatsoever.
Well, Denny's just great. And it's a good form for him to go on and talk to you in that setting. All right.
There you go. Listen to it, folks.
There you go. TakeCast, sub on iTunes. I'm Pat Mayo. You should subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience, also on iTunes, Stitcher, Audio Boom, Google Play, TuneIn, Radio Public. If you can download a fucking podcast, you can find my podcast. It's probably how you're listening to it anyway. Also, give the episode a like in the description. Leave your DraftKings handle and your favorite running back value on the board. Then you can enter a draw for $20 DK. I'll announce the winner on Monday's live show, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, waiver and recap with Jake Seeley. And again, Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the DraftKings YouTube channel. I'll be there. Garion will be there. The cast will be there, reviewing all the inactives, all the injuries, updated rankings, and then taking your questions live on the show. The questions, most of the time, pretty terrible, but bring them anyway. We'll answer them in a very snarky fashion. Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck in week 3. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!